What's the head of the octopus? It runs all the major religious extremist organizations. It runs all the major militaries, the intelligence bureaus, through compartmentalization. What is the master plan? What is the end game? Colonel Craig Roberts, our guest. Colonel.
Well, you know, Alex, I brought this up, I think it was last year sometime. I found out about it about 5 years ago. When I wrote my book, Kill Zone, about the Kennedy assassination, I chased, you know, who would benefit, who would profit, who had the capability of pulling it off, and then covered it up no matter who was in the White House until, 2029, because that's when they said they would release whatever records they had. And I kept chasing, who would benefit, it met all that criteria up above the White House. Was there an entity above the White House that could actually control the entire country no matter who was in office? Was there an entity that could control the monarchies of Europe? Did that entity exist? Did it, control things and events in Asia? Well, yes, I found that entity. And that entity, I thought I'd found him anyway, and it was up, I found out about the Council on Foreign Relations, the Royal Society for International Affairs, the Round Table Group, how they were linked to the Rothschild money that goes back to 1773. And I thought, well, boy, there it is right there. And I let my wife's cousin read the book, who had over 30 years in the CIA, and he said, you hit everything on this book right here. It's got everything in it. This is the way it happened. You left out a few things, though. And I said, like what? He says, well, on the Kennedy thing, yeah, he was going to shut down the Federal Reserve, but he was also going to do something else. And I said, what's that? And he said he was pulling this out of Southeast Asia, which included Laos and Cambodia and the Golden Triangle, which means that we were not going to have black funding for the CIA that goes back all the way to OSS Team 101 during World War II when they seized Indochina away from the Japanese. And after they kicked the French out, which we helped them do, helped the Vietnam do, then we ended up with a heroin trade. He said, we're talking billions of dollars of black funding that no one can account for. He says, and Kennedy was going to pull us out of that. So, then Allen Dulles, put the stop to that. Well, anyway, I thought, okay, fine. But where are you going with this? He said, you have to understand. He said, I've read all of this stuff that these people have written about the Committee of 300 and all this sort of thing. And he said, the Council of 30, or the Committee of 33. He says, but there's one at the very top, and it's called the Council of 13. And the Council of 13 controls the banks. They control all leaders of all countries. They control the communication systems. They control shipping. They control education, medicine, media, the whole bit. And he said, you have to understand that that's. And he says the members change all the time. He said at one time, he was pretty sure that Henry Kissinger sat on that council, and named a few others that I didn't know. But that's where it starts. And these people have one goal in mind, and that is a one world government, a one world currency, and they're in charge. It's just that simple. And it doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with power. It has to do with elitists saying, we're the boss, you're the workers, you do what we say, and we'll feed you and house you and take care of you.
And by the way, off the record, you've told me the name of this guy, and I looked him up. He was big, high-powered oil, high-level CIA that's in your family, we're not going to say who, that told you this.
Yeah, in fact, he was over here the day before yesterday, as a matter of fact, and he's 86 now. And he was down in working in Chile, Peru, Uruguay. Was part of the Cuban operations and all of that.
Is he happy about what's happening? I mean,
oh, absolutely not. He's a super patriot, always has been, and all his friends were. He said that he was good friends with Colby, and Colby was a patriot. When Colby was head of the CIA, he named a lot of people. He said these guys, they really tried to fight for this country.
And they killed Colby, didn't they?
Well, somebody did. Yeah, that was set up to look as a stupid suicide, and it was so obviously a homicide, it was ridiculous. Or an accident. I guess it was a canoe accident or whatever it was supposed to have been.
Kayak.
Yeah, well, he said he went to the funeral, and he said somebody took him out. He was going to expose something, he wasn't sure what. Okay, anyway,
stay there. Let's come back. Long segment coming up. Let's get into world government being only the beginning. What's the end game of world government? What are they going to do once they have it? And I want all the police and all the military and all the government people to listen. Everything we've talked about's come true so far. We're going directly to their own documents and statements. You need to understand. And as for the Committee of 13, that round table, I'll tell you about that. Colonel Craig Roberts is our guest, and you can visit his website at riflewarrior.com. He's had a whole bunch of best-selling books, but he's basically out of the publishing business these days. And he said that when these books are sold out, that may be it. So be sure and check out all the great books at riflewarrior.com. We still sell a few of them at Infowars.com as well in the online video bookstore shopping cart. Great material. But before we go any further, you were bringing up Committee of 13. And they call those steering groups. You've got the Bilderberg Group, 125 members. You've got the Trilateral Commission with a couple hundred. You've got the CFR, a lower-level group of 4,000. But if you look at who's the head of the Club of Rome, or the head of the UN, or the head of the European Union, or the head of the Council on Foreign Relations, it's less than 20 people. It's less than 20 people that chair all those groups. And then routinely, we will see multiple members of those groups meeting for what they call steering committees. And every once in a while, you'll even see a blurb like, oh, the Library of Congress was locked down for 2 days while the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group was meeting in secret. So they just kind of throw it out there to acclimate people. And we were getting into, they want world government. Now, Colonel, why do you think they've now gone from denying they're building world government to Von Rompuy, the head of the European Union, Ban Ki-moon, the head of the UN, the Secretary General, Al Gore, hundreds of these leaders in the last 6 months have announced world government's here. We're killing the dollar. We're going to tax everything you do. We're going to federalize your local neighborhood. We're going to take over your farms and ranches. We're going to brainwash your kids. We're going to fund the world government with carbon taxes. They are just flaunting it in our face.
Well, that's because they have the power now. They think they've got the power to where no one can stop them. They've gone over the hump. They've come out into the open from the shadows, and now what they're trying to do is rally support globally from anybody they can. And they sugarcoat everything, and they say it's for your own good. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect the ocean. We're trying to protect the air. We're trying to protect the climates. We're trying to protect the children. We're trying to protect your health. We're trying to make sure everybody has health insurance. And they just go on and on. Everybody's going, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll sit back and you can take care of me. Which kills, absolutely destroys the original American spirit of you just give me a chance and I'll take care of myself. And I'll take care of my family. That was the pioneer spirit that built this nation above all the others, and now that's being taken, the rug's being jerked out from under us. It's being bought. We're being bought and sold at the same time. We're turned into chattel. We're slaves. When they started the income tax, it was a step toward national slavery. And when we get a global tax, it'll be international slavery, because if you don't pay your tax, you go to jail. If you don't pay your tax, they seize your house, they seize your assets, your bank account, and so on down the line. So you got to pay the tax. So that means you've got to go to work. Well, here's the job we're going to give you, because this is what we say you can do, and here's how much we're going to pay you. And we're going to make sure that you spend so much time working that you don't have any time to plot against us, organize against us, or do anything to pose a threat. And that's how you do that. You keep everybody so busy and so brain dead with the education system and the idiotic media we have now that doesn't report anything, that you have a problem. And I want to make one point. I want everybody to just listen to this one little thing right here. Have you noticed, and a lot of you have, I know I have you noticed that when you put on CBS News in the evening, and they have a news story, and you switch to NBC, they have the same news story at the same time, and you go to ABC, they have the same news story at the same time. They have the commercial breaks at the same time. When they come back, it's a different news story, but they all do the same news story. Somebody orchestrates all three branches of the media as far as what we're allowed to see and hear, what stories are stories and what stories aren't stories. We have stuff that comes up like these hackers that got into the computer systems and found out that the global warming thing was this giant hoax, and not one major media out there, government-controlled media, reported or even breathed a word of it. You've got people out there who've been trying to say, hey, just show us Obama's birth certificate. Just show it to us. Well, years ago, the media would have jumped all over that, like a crow on a piece of corn, and now they won't even touch it. They won't even mention it. In fact, if you even mention it, then you're a birther. You're a weirdo. You wear tinfoil hats. And so what they've done is they've taken and decided what you're going to see and what you're going to hear, and it goes back to the original 1773 Rothschild plan that I've got a whole chapter on in my book, Kill Zone, that says control all outlets of public information. That's one of the main tenets that you have to do. And then you can use the media for mind control, because you tell everybody what's good and what's bad, and they believe it. And Of course, obviously everybody doesn't believe it, but I mean, the point is that